48-hour art check, round 57.
That's right.
Tell you what, I'm excited. There's
Me too.
Good stuff happening. So, yeah. So, you wanted to talk about, or actually, Greg Kemble asked a question about print-on-demand sites. Do you want to kind of set that up for the topic?
Yeah, so my brother had a student kind of ask him what his thoughts on Redbubble were, and he was like, I have no idea. I don't use any print-on-demand sites. So he reached out to me, and it was like right before the show, and I was like, oh, let's just make it per topic.
Yeah.
So it's a well-worn topic, but at the same time, I thought it'd be a little more fun to kind of spitball it, and also partially because I have like a few sites that are kind of my go-tos, and so and I'm sure you have your sites that are your go-tos, and so I figured between the two of us, he'll get a more comprehensive answer than if I just spouted one out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what specifically was he asking about? Did he just like general information, or?
I think the main gist of it was regarding kind of the quality. I think the student who had brought it to him was kind of concerned about that she had heard of Redbubble, was the quality good, and that's basically all she had heard of as an option.
Uh-huh.
And so the question was like, is Redbubble like a thing? Is that a good way to go? And I guess also mention cards, like wanting to talk about a place to print cards. And I think it just seemed like a really good question. So to me, the way I'd frame it is like, if you're a young artist and you want to kind of print your own merch, I would say a lot of the time, if you want the best bang for your buck, just going direct and actually having it manufactured yourself is always going to be a better return on your dollar if you have the marketing ability to kind of get it to enough people. You're always going to make a much better return on your investment by just like going through like a screen printing company or a company that does direct to garment printing and just buying the shirts in bulk. But
so it's an interesting challenge, because either way you go, you make a sacrifice. Because on the one hand, you have to print, at best like 75 to 250 shirts to really get like a decent screen printing price, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But the price that you can get is between like $4 to $7 a shirt, depending on a number of factors like the number of screens and things like that. But then, like as a beginner, like my ability to sell 200 shirts, I don't have that. And so I might make a per unit cost that is like great, because I sell them for $15-20 a piece, and I make, 10 to $15 a shirt. So that's awesome. But then my break-even point is pretty high, because I have to print so many shirts, and I'm sitting on inventory. The other challenge with shirts that I find is that you have to guess what people's sizes are if you're going to order in bulk. And every time I did this for a company, I always ended up with way too many of one size. On the other hand, the sacrifice that you make with one at a time printing, which is print on demand, and for those people that don't know what print on demand is, you basically send them a PNG of your artwork, and they can put it on a bunch of different stuff, and they print one of them every time somebody makes an order, and then they will fulfill it for you, which is kind of cool. So you don't have to deal with shipping, you don't have to deal with fulfillment, but you're going to make like $2 a shirt.
Yeah.
But you make that $2 on the first shirt.
Yeah, and I mean the thing with so I would assume in this student's case, like you're probably not in a position where you're gonna like be showing up at like a giant rock festival selling T-shirts for like the most popular band there.
Right.
In that case, I would say invest in the print run, because and do your research on sizing. But sizing is always tough, and inventory is really hard to predict in apparel. However, the reason that's always like a high like seller in retail areas and like at venues and events is it's like a relatively low entry to create. It doesn't cost quite as much as like a fully manufactured product. Um, shirts, blank T-shirts are relatively inexpensive to buy in bulk, and the process of screen printing is very low cost when you do it in bulk. So once again, it's all about bulk. But if you're doing it in bulk, your return is ridiculous. I mean, you've invested maybe $3 or $4. If you're ordering the right quantity, maybe 3, maybe you get even down to 2 what you're spending on it, and you're selling them for 20. And a lot of people won't blink to before they shell out like $20 to $30 for a good T-shirt at like a band, at a concert, at an event. And so you're literally like, I can't, I'm trying to do the math really quickly, but I think that's about like 9/10 return,
Right.
which is insane.
Yeah.
Like that's a crazy return for any product. So I just want to always preface it with, like, if you have the ability and the market to sell it and the will to, like you wanted to start a company or something like that that just sold T-shirts, always invest direct with the printer. However, direct to garment, like it not only reduces the fact that you don't have to invest in the cost of fulfillment, like Cory was saying. It also the quality of direct to garment printing, it's like night and day compared to the way it was about like 5 or 6 years ago. Like 5 or 6 years ago, you could really tell that something was direct to garment printed. And now it's still visible for geeks, for people who are really into the screen printing process. But in general, like, there are companies out there that have gotten so good with the direct to garment that it at least requires a really substantial double take to figure out, hey, was this like direct to garment printing or was this screen printed?
Right.
Which is insane, because like if you said that 5 years ago, like, you can't tell the difference between screen printing and direct to garment, people would have laughed you out of the industry. But it's just changed that much. It's gotten that much better.
Yeah.
So, what are our options? So, like, why don't we start with what they were asking about? So these sites, like, I guess we should start with, like, the sites we're going to go over are all print on demand sites, and we're going to kind of talk about ones we've used and kind of the results we got from them. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So the first ones, they came out like Cafe Press. That's been around forever, and Redbubble has been around forever. They don't have a great name for quality. I think mainly because they were around prior to the days of direct to garment, and it was literally like printing an iron-on and cutting it out and pasting it on a shirt, and it was terrible. I actually haven't tried either of those sites recently because I just have a bad taste in my mouth from back in the day. But I did just get an email because I sell on TeePublic. I just got an email from TeePublic that Redbubble has acquired TeePublic, and they've done it kind of in the Amazon way, where when Amazon acquires a company, they don't touch the company. They just add to it. And so Redbubble is still Redbubble and TeePublic is still TeePublic. So I can't honestly speak to Redbubble other than they were kind of early in the game, and so they've got like a long time standing. There is, as you pointed out before we went live, a little bit on some of these sites like Zazzle and some of those, you're going to run into a lot of people just ripping off IPs, and being associated with that can be kind of problematic.
So, sometimes worse than that. I'll just say, like, I've had shirts that I've designed show up on somebody's Redbubble site multiple times.
Right.
And like, so badly ripped off that you can see the pixels, because they didn't even bother to get like a high res version, and they decided to change the background color or something. So it's, be leery of what you're getting into. But Redbubble, from what I've heard and what I've seen recently, I've had a few moments where I've been hanging out with a friend and asked them where they got a shirt. It looks really good, and they did get it on Redbubble. So I think it's worth trying out.
Yeah.
Nice thing about print on demand is the cost to try it out isn't too bad. I would recommend before putting your stuff up for sale, like just upload it, order one, you know, don't list the link to it, and then see the quality. And when it, you know, when you get it back, what I do use myself, and I think Cory, you do as well, is Threadless. Started doing a print on demand program, and their direct to garment printing, I think, was the first time any company had done direct to garment that didn't look hideous. Like it was, I don't know, they had worked on it for years, and they had just kind of got the formula right. And then it feels like every shirt company followed suit. I might have read it wrong because I was in Threadless circle at the time. Maybe somebody else had beat them to it, but it did feel like within about 3 months, there were a whole variety of options. So yeah. What, you know, to me, I haven't had too much of a trouble with the quality. The one thing that never matches screen printing to me is you never get those like perfectly crisp edges.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing about, I don't know, one thing for me is the amount of time that it takes to do it. And that's it for me. A huge downside for Threadless is, of the 3 print-on-demand sites that I sell on, Threadless is the most time-consuming. And I've actually stopped uploading new designs to them because it just takes forever. Like you have to make so many choices that you shouldn't have to make because they're the same choices over and over again. And anyway. But Threadless is great, and they also give you the option of doing a bunch of weird stuff that some of the other sites don't offer, like duvet covers and shower curtains, and you know, all of them are doing kind of the similar thing, but there's some differentiation. And Threadless has a lot of like home goods that you can print on that are literally so expensive that I can't imagine anybody would ever spend that amount of money for a shower curtain. But it's kind of funny to see your artwork mocked up on this, you know, 4-footed tub shower curtain situation. So,
you know what's strange? So that'll be a good transition to Society 6, which has been the first. That was the first company I ever really agreed to do print on demand with. When they started out, they kind of, their business model at the time, Threadless was only doing the contest and selling shirts of people who won the contest, and they were screen printed T-shirts. And Society 6 had come up with this print-on-demand model, but unlike most, they were going to print them in, I'm blanking out on the term, but it's like archival ink and archival paper, really high-quality prints. And they were really particular about shipping them with quality. And if customers weren't satisfied, they would do returns. They just, and the artists who signed up early on, including myself, were all people who were special invited, and like nobody else was invited. Like you know, you could kind of beg them to like give an invite to someone, but it was very exclusive. And so because of that, like that, it enticed me, and I just was like, well, what's the harm in trying it out? Because you kept the rights to all your work, which you should definitely read the fine print on all of these sites, but the majority of them will have you keep all your rights to your work. And it didn't conflict with Threadless at the time because they had a deal. So I was like, sweet, I can sell some prints that I've already sold and make more money on them. And then I was really blown away by the quality of just the prints that they sell. I still, to this day, think they make like some of the best quality art prints that you can get. And the nice thing is they also sell them pre-framed, and I've even ordered those, and like they use really nice frames, and you know, you can have them matted. And they also expanded their options to everything. And what's interesting is I have had some people order shower curtains with my art on them. I've had people order pillows with my art on them.
Yeah, throw pillows I think are pretty cool.
Yeah. And so what's weird is like I always believe you should limit the options you allow, but if your art works on all those mediums, you know, you don't want to overload the person, but at the same time, like it is kind of fun to occasionally be like, somebody bought this really big duvet cover with, you know, my Captain Obvious design on it. Like,
Right.
so somewhere at some college, some kid is sleeping under, you know.
Right.
Um, so Society 6, I think for everything but t-shirts, I would 100% vouch for them.
Yeah.
For t-shirts, I'm really selective about the ones I sell because the shirts they use are really comfortable. So
What brand do
that's
they
the
print with? Do you know?
I don't actually know. I think they do tagless.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't, but I do remember they're really cozy. The downside is that I don't personally think maybe they've up their game, but I've noticed it's really good for a one color design.
Hmm.
Definitely not great for like full color designs
Interesting.
because they look a little washed out.
Yeah.
And you could play that for effect, but it's I think for like a one color it's a good option. But if you're going full color, you might want to go with like a threadless or uh, let's transition to another designed by humans, which was another one of the first to do this kind of print on demand for t-shirts in like a killer quality way. Um, so you have you used
Yeah,
Designed by Humans?
I like Designed by Humans a lot. Their interface is slightly faster. Personally, I feel like the quality of the printing in the shirts is slightly better than Threadless. But I mean it's kind of sixes. Um, they've got really good options, and one thing that's really nice about them is that their site will show your stuff mocked up on a model. And so like one of their branding things that they've done forever is that they have these model images that are kind of like cut off at the nose and then cut off just below the pockets of the pants so that you really get a focus on the t-shirt. And not only do they give you those images for free, and they are super high quality mock-ups, they also automatically mock up your stuff on that. And you get for every style of shirt or hoodie or whatever, like there's V-necks and tri-blends and normal cotton, and then whatever each different style, you get to choose between two models, two male models and two female models for each type of shirt. And so you can kind of go in and it's a little bit of customization that's kind of cool, for
Yeah,
like how it's mocked up and how it's presented. And I like that. And speaking of that, that's one really nice thing about Threadless. And this is where sites start to diverge a little bit in the philosophy. Is that Designed by Humans and Threadless? There's no way to leave your store with them and find other artists. So it's gonna be a destination page. They go there specifically because they're driven there by you through your site or through Twitter or through whatever, right? And so like you can go to selfless plug, you can go to corykerr.com/store and you'll see links to each of these if you want to see what they look like or whatever. Um,
yeah,
but the cool thing with Threadless and Designed by Humans is that you go there, it's a destination page. You're not going to be there's not suggested artwork from other artists where they can leave and go buy something else.
yeah,
But having said that, they also can't find you unless they are looking specifically for you. So if you look at like something like TeePublic, TeePublic is more like a big giant area where people are going and they are looking for specific intellectual property or specific whatevers, jokes and that type of thing, and everybody's there. So you can still go to my TeePublic store, but when you go to my TeePublic store, you will see other artists. As you're looking at my products, you'll see other artists and whatever. And so there's huge pluses and minuses to both of those situations.
yeah,
Being
and
found or losing sales.
yeah, and I think that a good thing to keep in mind when you're entering in is everybody has a different entry point. Like if I were to enter into Society 6 now, I might just get drowned out by the noise. Because like at the time, by being on it, you could actually like you could draw the people who were going to Society 6.
Right.
Now there's so many users that I think it would be really hard to kind of stand out or gain a high following there. Similar, like Designed by Humans, like when I was like in the t-shirt game and it was kind of the peak of threadless, like DBH had just started up and they approached a bunch of threadless alumni. And so they invited me to submit some stuff. And at the time you'd get like invites. I mean, we all get them now probably, but you get invites by like a new t-shirt startup that's like, we have this contest, submit, you know?
Right.
But in this case, it was like, the way to tell it was legit was like, okay, all these guys that are alumni are on there and they're getting printed.
Yeah.
So I had this whole system worked out for a couple of years where I would filter stuff from like Threadless. That was my first stop. And then there was this French site called La Phrase, or Canadian site, I'm not sure, but La Phrase, and like that they paid second best. So you'd kind of filter your losers into there, and then you filter those to DBH.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I had a couple wins on DBH, and then when they started the whole direct-to-garment printing, print-on-demand thing, it was a lot like Society 6, where it was really exclusive. It was like, you know, there's a couple people who can have this page. We're testing it out, you know, before we go to market.
Right.
And so that's how I got into that. And I still make occasional sales, and not as much residual sales from that, but I do still make occasional sales, and I attribute most of those to like that early success on it.
Yeah.
And also just to having links direct to it on my site, joshkemble.com. So it's like that that thing. Oh, so Greg was being more specific on what she had to ask. So he said, if you were just starting out now, had 2 or 3 designs you'd like on shirts, cups, etc., where would you go? So I actually, I'll answer that real quick, and then Cory, you should answer yours. But to me, I think that I haven't even tried it, but I think for sure it's TeePublic. Just the results I've seen is pretty good. Like the quality is pretty excellent, and I think Circlin does his stuff through there. Scott Circlin. He does a lot of prints through there for shirts. So I do that for shirts, but I think you got to be specific. Like I think if I wanted shirts, cups, etc., I'd go to the places that do those things the best. So like for cups, I would probably go all the way back to like Society 6 because their quality is really good. I'd also just research it. Like I was saying, the nice thing is you can order a sample of these things, and if it sucks, it's like you lost $5 or $10, and you're not like breaking the bank, like having to pay like a $90 setup fee with a local printer or something, you know. What's your feedback on that?
My feedback is kind of probably annoying. I think that it depends on what you want, because and it also is very situational depending on your audience. I don't have a huge following of people that come to me for t-shirt designs, so I don't have a giant audience for that, and so those sites like TeePublic, Redbubble and Society 6, where it's kind of an open bazaar of everyone is there. I get decent sales off of, not decent, but I probably get more sales off of TeePublic just because no one's looking for me specifically, right? And so if you're just starting out in printing, but you're also just starting out as an artist and you don't have much of an audience, then one of the open ones like TeePublic is a great thing. But if you're super closed and you have a big audience and you can make a YouTube video or an Instagram post, and 50 people are going to click on that link, then it makes a lot of sense to do something like a DBH or a Threadless, where it's closed off. Also, like Printify or even like Squarespace has some options where it's all like very, very closed off, right? And so it kind of depends like the situation you're in. But I'll also say this. I don't think you have to pick just one. If you are going for mass, and you've got the time to do the keywords and descriptions well, launch it on 6 different sites, because all of the sites we've mentioned and most of the sites out there have a non-exclusive right that you're granting them to show. So you're not signing over your copyright. You are allowing them to show it on their site and print it non-exclusively, meaning that I can do it. Like on my site, I do it on 3 different ones. And I do it on more if I was really trying to push that.
Yeah.
And for me, if there's somebody on Society6 or somebody on TeePublic and they want a mug, they can buy a mug from either of those, and that's fine. It doesn't. I don't really care, that much. I do eliminate a few of the products on a few of those sites just based on I really think they're poor quality. But for the general idea of everything, they do most things really, really well and fairly comparably. And so I would say if you've got 3 designs, it's only going to take you an hour to put that on 4 or 5 different sites. So you can do that as well. And so,
well, and another thing is like just by doing that, just tacking onto that, like that also becomes an experiment of like which site's going to work for you for which designs. Because if you notice like one design is just excelling on one of them, then you can mark off the others, The other thing to keep in mind with the whole closed versus open thing, the different formats that Cory was touching on earlier, is just some of the pluses and minuses of that. There's one thing I forgot that's a huge plus of the open, which is, let's say you have 50 friends and you get them to a closed market store, then you made 50 sales. That's great, but it doesn't really affect the algorithm too much. Whereas if you make 50 sales on, say, like a Society6 or one of those sites where like the front page is trending designs,
right,
then those 50 sales you just made might put you on that front page leading to 50 more sales. So it really depends on your business strategy too.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think, starting out, like, why not try it all? I mean, when I was starting out in t-shirts, I tried a bunch of different entry points. And when I found one that worked, I tried to figure out how and game it, and then, try to come up with systems to game other sites and kind of get it working out. So yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it totally does. Greg's back and says, my favorite answer is always, it depends, as long as you discuss what it depends on. So I agree. And I think the answer to most of these things is always, it depends. I will also say this. I've seen several cartoonist friends of mine on Twitter that do this. One in particular, and I'll put him in the description because he's got some great stuff. He does like Columbo jokes and stuff, and he's got a whole webcomic about dads, and it's just really funny. But he does something that I find really interesting, where some of these sites will give you an affiliate account, and so you can, like on TeePublic, you can double dip, where if you drive traffic to TeePublic, just like an Amazon affiliate account, they will give you a percentage of whatever that person buys within, 24 or 48 hours off of that, right? Because they save cookies. So the cool thing is you can drive traffic to that site, and if they buy one of your things, then you're going to get the couple bucks that comes, the dollar that comes from that sticker, or the $2, $3 that comes from that shirt, or the $4 or $5 that comes from that hoodie, plus a percentage of whatever they ordered. Also, if you send them to that site and they bounce to another artist, you still get a little piece of that. So you're going to get like a 3 to 5% commission for whatever they buy. And so you can kind of double dip on that a little bit. And that's not a bad route to go as well.
So so I hope we kind of touched on that like as well as possible. Just to reiterate what I was saying at the top, though, like if you're doing like a local art fair that there's going to be like hundreds of people that you're going to try to push a lot of shirts to, don't do on demand. Or if you're doing a convention, and you want to sell a bunch of t-shirts at a convention, do not do on demand. You're going to lose more money doing the shipping and the cost to ship it to you than you would to just kind of eat the cost and really give it a sure shot. So I guess that's our overall answer, is it depends. It's all based on the situations.
I have one more answer. I saw a really entrepreneurial student do this, and I think it's a fascinating idea. For about $300, you can get set up with your own dye sublimation system. And so you get a now dye sub is or sometimes called ink inversion, and there's some debate on what the difference is between those two, but the one I'm talking about is basically you print the image in reverse on a special piece of paper, and then you have this big giant heat press, and you press that down on the shirt. It actually vaporizes the ink. It changes it from a liquid to a gas. That gas is then transferred into the shirt, and it dyes the fabric of the shirt so that the fibers of the shirt are actually dyed a new color. There's some huge disadvantages to this, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the advantage is you can do one at a time, and you can get set up for $300. That includes like the printer, the ink, a little bit of paper, and then that press is pretty interesting. So you can do that, and then you can do, like, you could show up and get the benefit of the print on demand and the benefit of the high margin for a very low setup fee, because you can just bring a bunch of different size shirts, and then when people say, I like this design, you print it right there and make it for them right there and hand it to them. You never have like an overrun of inventory, but also
That's smart.
But also it's huge, right? The downside is whatever color the shirt is will mix with the design because you're dyeing it, and so it works for several things. Like if you're doing like a vintage look where it's supposed to look faded, like if you look at Josh's shirt right now, you can see the red coming through the ink, right? And so it gives it that kind of vintage look, whereas mine's a little bit newer and is screen printed, and so it's very opaque. The other thing is if you just do dark things on light. And the third downside to that is it has to be a pretty high polyester blend. So you can't do it on like pure cotton. It's got to be cotton poly or full poly for it to like accept it. But that's not a bad route to avoid.
Yeah, you want to avoid starting fires, like, right. Oh, and that could be a literal situation there.
Yeah.
That actually brings to mind one other thing, which is like there's a reason punk rock bands sell these patches that are just like torn off cloth with like one color of white on it, and it's because like screen printing, if you have the wherewithal, is not super expensive to set up. I mean, it'd be ideal if you had a light box, but even if you don't have a light box, you have the sun. It is a complete DIY, very low cost entry thing.
My cat just attacked my microphone. Dang it! Sorry.
No, that's perfect. The cat joined in. But yeah, it's a good DIY like entry point. If you need to do like 1 or 2 color shirts, screen printing them yourself is going to cost a lot less than going to a printer. And there's a lot of people, a lot of DIY screen printing communities online that you can just like literally just look up and ask a lot of questions, and they'll help you get set up. So.
Yeah, and along those lines, I went to Adobe Max last year, and one of the most popular booths at Max, I don't know if they were there this year, Josh, but was a screen printing thing, and you're going to take this into account that the audience of Adobe Max is a bunch of designers, illustrators, and photographers, but the line was crazy, and they had all of these little stations set up where you got to screen print your own shirt. So if you have a bunch of your screens there, and they're all like one color or whatever, people will do that. I still have that shirt, and it's still like a fun little memory of like, you get the little squeegee and they show you how to do it, and they, and then you walk away with this screen printed shirt that you just did yourself. And so if you're doing kind of like a setup like that, we could actually probably do a whole nother episode on like DIY printing, because there's also like the sun dyes where you not photosynthesize. That's what plants do. I can't remember, but it's like a reaction that the ink has to the cotton, and it will dye it that way as well, and it's different than like ink inversion because it's more anyway. So there's a whole thing.
Yeah, and I spent a long time doing screen printing, especially in grad school, because we had access to this like awesome screen printing facility on campus. But it's like it's a lot of work. So it's like that's the catch. Anyhow, so I hope we kind of touched on it. I think we should touch screen printing for the next, like maybe one of these future episodes. I hope we answered that question well. And yeah. So should we get into the check?
Yes, let's do it.
Right.
Why don't you start? So what progress have you gotten there?
All right, so not as far as I'd like, but I have done rough pencils for the first 4 panels of this page, leaving the last panel, which is probably the hardest panel to do. So,
gotcha.
That's pretty much where I'm at.
Cool. And these are rough or tight? They're not tight, right? Because you usually have
no. These are
the red.
Super rough. Yeah. So I fixed certain things. Like if you look on that last panel, like that bottom right panel, like the center line is a little off. Like the eye's a little too far to his right cheek.
Oh right. Yeah.
And so it's like that's the kind of stuff I don't perfectly fix, but I alter so that it's more passable when I go over it with like the magenta where I'm crisping it up.
Right.
And I'll probably work that right hand a little bit more too, on the top right because it's a little stiff. So.
Cool.
And maybe make them a little less sausagey, although I like having a little bit of sausage fingers on this style. So yeah.
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 Awesome. For me, I did this guy. So I finally got to EVA Unit 01 Optimus. I don't know what I'm calling him. And then I also did the Lorax the Tick as the Lorax and a couple others. So I'm knocking out some of the smaller ones. Oh, I did Ash from Evil Dead as Assassin's Creed as well, and you can kind of see him off to the side of this one. But so that's what I got done. A bit more progress than I had done in the past on some of those things, just based on I'm feeling a little bit better, so I can sit at the table slightly longer. So
awesome.
Yeah. What challenges did you have?
Oh man. Okay, so just some personal stuff just got nuts, and so I had to kind of strategize, dealing with just stuff that came out of nowhere. And then on top of that, I don't know if it's my kid just his first year in school, but it feels like he brings home sickness all the time, and I get sick, and then it just goes through the house. So I've been fighting a cold. So if you hear a throat thing, but that's why I couldn't be on Artcheck last time, because I literally was I couldn't talk. If I were talking right now, I'd be like, abs.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's the struggle, but I still managed to kind of push through and only miss one day of productivity that I should have kept with. So yeah,
that's cool.
What about you?
Yeah, so just more of the same. I just keep having the same issues over and over again. But this one actually, why is that coming up? Oh, where'd we go? Here we go. I just had this. I've had this knot in my back, in between my spine and my shoulder blade, for a month, and I don't know. I'm just stupid, and so I don't do anything about it. And it got worse and worse and worse, and it just got unbearable one day. And so I went in 2 days ago, and got it adjusted, and it felt good that day. It hurt a lot yesterday. It's felt good most of today. Now it's really hurting. So I don't know. It's just I'm just I feel like I need to adjust the way I'm working, because my hands have been hurting and my back has been hurting, and I feel like if I'm not careful, I'm heading towards injury. So that's one of the reasons why I've been limiting the amount of time I've got at the table a little bit, is I'm trying to get some of that worked out. But so it's I could sit there and draw, but I think I'm gonna like slip a disc or something if I don't be careful.
Yeah, and what you're describing, like just the location of it, that tends, like, because for me, whenever I get pain based on drawing, it usually is either like on my wrist,
right,
or it's like, you know, kind of towards like the pit of my arm, but the majority of it all goes back behind my shoulder blade.
Right.
And it's just this aching, like, knot that it like grows under the shoulder blade. It's the most irritating knot in the universe. And I think it is something to watch out for. It's a risk of our job, and our passion is the fact that, like, there are injuries from, like, overdoing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know what else to say other than, I mean, I know, like, we had our good friend Michael Emirates too. Just went through, like, one of the horror stories for artists where, like, he can't use his hand, and that's literally something that I've woken up in, like, night sweats thinking about.
Right.
Like, so
though recently he did say that he's starting to show some promise. At least last week he got one of those gyroscope balls, and he was saying it was really helping. So I don't know where he is this week, but I'm curious to see if he's on the road to recovery, because those things are awesome.
Yeah, those things are amazing, and they're kind of weird because they don't use a battery. It's just gyroscopic motion.
Yeah,
that kind of distributes the weight. Like, I've never used one, but I'm, like, fascinated now. I'm kind of curious.
They're pretty cool. I have them several.
Nice.
But so how about plans?
So for plans, I think my plan realistically is to finish the rough pencils for that last panel. The last panel is a big scene in the classroom, and so it's a wide panel, and I want to make sure I get all the expressions and kind of movement correct. So it's going to take a while. But other than that, I'm hoping to recover to a point where I can, like, work out again, because I am starting to get, like, aches and pains that I don't have when I'm consistently working out, and it's really weird that I've turned into that person to me. It's just weird, because I used to be the guy who'd mock people who would be like, I gotta get in my workout, you know?
Right.
But because of the very thing you were talking about, like, I've constantly had pain in my shoulders, in my back, because I sit all day at a computer.
Yeah.
And then I like do this weird cross hatching style. The style I'm working now is, like, a nice break from that. But like, yeah, so when I'm not working out, it's like all of the pain from what I'm doing is just present everywhere. And so I'm hoping to kind of get back to that, but I can't really do that when my throat is all messed up, because it could, you know, cause, like, I forget what it's called, but it's like bronchitis or something. I don't really want to get that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to get back into that. I feel like as I gain more weight, I get more problems, and so I just need to get on the horse and stick with it, because I feel like that's a major issue, is I'm just out of shape. So so for me, I've got just more of this. I'm gonna do Chun-Li as Spawn, and then I don't know, one or two other characters as I feel like whichever ones kind of jump out at me. Probably there's another one that'll be pretty quick to do, is the Baroness as Powerpuff Girls. So I have 2 of the 3 Powerpuff Girls done, and the last one is Baroness from Cobra. So I'll probably get Chun-Li and Baroness done before we meet again.
I love it. I love how that's coming out, and it is weird how, like, the more you're drawing it, I start to forget how you structured it, and I'm just like, how did you? And then I'm like, wait a minute, I know how you've been doing this, but it's getting to that point of, like, the big wow kind of factor, which I think that's great. Yeah,
it's fun to see it fill up, because I just started left to right, and so it's like, you know, filling up, I don't know, about 70% of the 2 pages now, which is kind of fun. I've been working on a little bit more of the backgrounds and stuff. I had I don't know what this is, a daydream or whatever, where it kind of flashed to me just, like, crumpling up the pages and throwing it all away, because I'm so sick of doing it. Because it's like I've been working on 1 page for a month. And it's mainly injuries and just because I'm going slow at it. But, like, I'm so sick of this spread. But it's fun. It's still kind of fun to do. I don't know.
Well, and you got to stay on target. You're almost there.
Yeah.
That's some Star Wars nerdery there.
Right.
Um, but I mean, it is one of. I actually do quote that scene in Star Wars all the time when I'm like getting frustrated with my art, where I'm just like almost there.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
That's funny.
so I don't know. I'd rather be drawing. In the chat said I don't know Mike, but that whole situation kind of hurts my heart. Maybe at some point the 100s could draw an entire anthology written by Mike, and he's a solid writer with a lot of ideas. I agree, but I wouldn't count him out for drawing.
He'll come back.
If there's anybody that I've seen like kind of just bounce back and get over difficulties and get art created, it's Mike. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't count him down for the count yet.
Yeah, I think the reason it's taken him so long to do it is he seems to be very carefully making sure that whatever solution he figures out is a sustainable one.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he'll be back. But I agree, man. I think about Mike's hand more than you would think, because it's terrifying and it's so sad. But he's handling it really well, and he'll come out of it. I think I'm pretty sure he will. So
yeah, for sure, he's handling it way better than I would. I'd just be like on Artcheck every week, like I hate my life.
right.
Okay, end of Artcheck.
Yeah.
But he's like been really optimistic and honestly like a light, like and a real example of like if that ever happens, or anyone else I know that happens, is a really good example of like how to kind of handle it and overcome it, because he's killing it. So
yeah,
all right,
for sure. Cool. You want to call us out?
yeah. So you can find my stuff at quarterlystories.com. You can find Cory Kerr's work, including like lots of video footage of this awesome thing being inked, lots of t-shirts that were produced by the very companies we discussed today. Lots of awesome stickers, lots of content, lots of great tutorials. I'm just going to keep going until Cory cuts me off.
I'm not going to cut you off. This is great. This is me not pitching myself.
Yeah, but you guys should check out Cory's stuff. He's amazing. And then the music was done by No Saboteurs, my band, and you can find us on facebook.com/No Saboteurs. And we're actually getting back to recording this next Tuesday. So anyhow, we will see you guys in a couple days.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.